Hey, welcome everybody. It's time again for another episode of Driven by Design, the only show that shows you the future. We usually say automotive design. I'm going to say personal transportation here. One conversation at a time with our driven designer, Bryan Thompson. Hey, Bryan.
Howdy. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we have an amazing guest, and I'm very excited to talk to. Don Tashman has brought in to our show for the very first time. We have an actual vehicle on our show.
Yes,
so we're gonna skew this one a little bit different because
personal transportation in the room,
in the actual room. We usually this obviously goes out for audio and video, and since we have video, I think this is a very special one. We need to show this. What we're going to talk about today is this electric skateboard, but it's so much more, and you have to see it to appreciate it. So without further ado, let me introduce Don. I'm glad you're here.
Hi, thanks for having me.
And let's get you to lower your mic a little bit, Bryan. There, just lower the mic, just bring it down just a little bit.
Oh, like my volume or the position,
the physical mic. There you go. All right.
Okay.
Now we're ready. You're so excited. You're so amped up.
I am.
About this.
I love that we actually have a vehicle in here today. I was looking at this in the lobby when we were outside, and you really have to see it in person. It's all about form and shape, and I'm going to let you introduce it so you can say why is that. Tell me a bit about what this is and what it's for.
Sure. We've been building, under the Loaded brand and Orangutan brand, we've been building skateboards for close to 20 years now. And
what are the two brands again? You said them so quickly.
Loaded Boards is our skate deck brand, and Orangutan Wheels is our
Orangutan Wheels. So the wheels actually have a brand name that's Orangutan. And is that because the wheels are special? They're not just wheels. Mm-hmm. They have something going on back there.
Well, in general, we've been doing these wheels since 2008. The wheels that you see over there have a motor built into them,
and that's
a motor hub. Yeah. So
what makes a skateboard wheel different? It looks like it's bigger and it's softer and it's whatnot. There must be something about the design.
That's very much our forte, is building really unique urethane compounds to make soft, durable, high-speed wheels.
And so the motor. So the special thing about this one is that it's motorized.
So we build the boards and the decks. We've been doing that for about 20 years.
Okay.
And in the past year, we teamed up with a company based out of Barcelona that makes an electric conversion kit, which is unlimited. And so we partnered with them, and this unlimited kit can fit on any skateboard.
Okay, so any skateboard could become motorized with this kit. And your company has partnered with them to make your specific board become motorized.
No, we partnered with them. We now took over all of everything from marketing to design to distribution.
Oh, you took over. That's even better. So
they're doing the engineering. They're an amazing engineering
And what's
team.
this company called then? The motorized pack. Does that have another name?
Yeah, Unlimited Engineering.
Got it.
And we've teamed up and we're calling it Unlimited X Loaded as a collaborative
Unlimited
partnership.
X Loaded, and that's if you wanted to find out more about these skateboards at the end of the show, that's what you would look up.
UnlimitedXloaded.com or on loadedboards.com. You can.
Excellent. Well, my inclination as a designer, I'm geeking out because I've never seen a skateboard with so much delicate surface, so I want to jump into the design, but I'm going to hold back on that because I want people to understand what it is, what this is first, and then we'll really get into the design and tell some of your inspirations. But what do you do with this?
It's first and foremost, I think it's just a lot of fun.
Yes,
you have a remote control. Handheld remote control.
Can I try this?
Sure.
And so you would stand. You basically would stand on this.
Stand on the board.
You'd stand on the board, and then you
push off. That would be reverse. And
do you have to do that goofy stance like he's doing, or do you have to give the goofy surfer stance like that?
The goofy stance makes it more fun.
Yeah, well. I want to experience it. This is method acting. I'm going to be
okay. So let's turn that on.
Oh,
and it'll. So for the purpose of safety, we've set it up so that you have to push off and be going at least about 2 miles an hour before it'll engage.
Okay.
But you can override that by pressing the A button and then forward.
Ah!
And then if you let go of the A button and move back, it'll start going. And that is a lot faster than it sounds, actually.
Listen to this sound.
It's
like a transformer.
It is, yeah.
It used to be a lot louder, and the engineering team is, they're so talented that they've been able to do so much refinement and efficiency that which interestingly makes it a lot quieter.
Is the noise part of it? I never would have thought of that. Like a motorcycle, it's got to be loud. Does it have to be loud, or should this be soft because it's going through urban areas and people can say, turn that thing down?
Yeah, it's a bigger question, right? With electric vehicles in general, should they have a noise associated with them? And, it's
that's a whole topic into itself. Is that there is so much sound design in a car that from the internal combustion engine, and when they're gone, people are surprised by them. But what I like about this, in this room, this sounds like a sound, but in the actual context of the world,
really hear it.
It's probably silent.
It's pretty silent.
Yeah. But so you stand and you kind of control this. I do have to feel like so you like stand and you balance and then
balance.
And then you go.
Press the A button with your toe finger, and now press forward.
Oh, okay. And so this would be moving me around.
And then it'd be moving
we have to do like a video demo. Okay. Wow, that's really cool. And so it's a mobility device. This is really about getting people around for the last.
So is it that? Now let me challenge you. Is this personal mobility? Am I going to use this to get from point A to point B, like I would a bike, like I would a motorcycle, like I would a car, or is this just a kid's toy that's fun to blast around on?
I think that's a fair question. I think it's mobility is a continuum. I mean, I think our boards in and of themselves before the electric aspect are both fun and personal engagement as well as mobility devices. I started off building skateboard. I mean, I grew up skateboarding, but I went out to New York for college, and I started building skateboards and longboards in the mid-'90s as a way to get around New York City. So it was first and foremost a functional transportation approach. It was also trying to emulate the experience of snowboarding.
Oh, interesting. Because it's interesting that you say that, because that's where my mind went to immediately. It's kind of like why I stood up, because I feel like it's like a surfing aspect to the thing, more than just like skateboarding tricks and doing that. This is really about moving about. So the interesting thing to me about this board too is this is your creation. This is your life's passion. You started making skateboards, and it has evolved over the last 20 years to
20 years,
what we have here. So tell me about that, because what I think is fascinating is it's there's a passion for skateboarding, but there's a passion for mobility, and if anybody can see his shirt, there's a hint of who his design inspiration is.
Right. And it's not one that you would instantly think of. I thought it would be some surf guy that would be his guiding muse. It's not.
Yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about who inspires you?
So, well, the shirt, just to jump into that, is based on Charles and Ray Eames's design, and they had a huge impact in the 40s and 50s on modernist design, but particularly on bent wood, and which had a tremendous impact on furniture design and then effectively skateboard design. So that is a big impact.
Now you make that leap of faith like it's so seamless, and you just lost me there. So I'm going to take mid-century design, a furniture designer who specialized in bent wood. Yep. What was his name? Charles Ames?
Charles and Ray Eames. It was a husband and wife.
I've heard the name. Very famous. Yeah, I don't know much about him. And you suddenly say that's because the board has wood, that it therefore is a seamless extension of that.
So in the 40s, Charles and Ray Eames did a really interesting splint. I think it was for veterans of World War II. And they did these, it was a wooden splint. And in order to achieve, it was a multi-ply wooden splint. And in order to achieve the contours that they did all these interesting relief cutouts in the splint, and that was very radical at the time.
Absolutely. And it was also very functional, and it was beautiful.
Exactly.
And it coincided with all of these GIs coming home from World War II that now had become familiar with this aesthetic, right? They saw these things. It started to inform mid-century, what became known as mid-century modern design. Right. So if any, people watching this, I assume our audience knows a bit about design, but for the ones that don't, this really created an aesthetic that we now think of as mid-century modern design. And so what I think is fascinating is that skateboards are wood, and they have a steamed aspect. So tell me about drawing your inspiration into this, because you really have to see this to see the complex and delicate surfaces on this. This is a piece of art, the skateboard.
Thank you.
Can you tilt it up a little bit?
Let's
just tilt it sideways.
Since we say they have to see it, let's show them.
That's one side.
Yeah. So I'm just going to take a minute to
point it out. What you say.
So as an automotive designer, I get really excited about form and shape, and that's what I really want him to get into, is that inspiration for how this comes. Because for his board, it's not styling; it's functional. But these little curves here are all delicate. They have these beautiful shapes that are very muscular and have a lot of tension. It's like a little miniature car. But talk about why they're there, because this isn't styling.
No, it's all functionally driven.
Yeah.
Very much so. It's very much about ergonomic touch points. These flares that occur here allow you to ride bigger wheels without having contact. But they also give you a place to put your foot to sense where you are on the board, to be able to push up against that.
What does that mean? So when you have, because this shape is here, it's giving feedback to you.
Bring the mic over.
Yeah, it's giving
Thanks,
feedback. Like you have both your feet here. You can push out without looking down on your board. You know where you are. You feel leverage. You have more engagement from the board. But what that also does, interestingly enough, is it stiffens up the board. So if you look at it, there's a couple really subtle things happening. We have a concave through the board. Most skateboards have concaves, which give you a more locked-in feel. This one has a variable concave. If you see, it's deeper in the center.
Yeah, it's like a valley.
And the way we did that is we designed it, we tried to get a tuned flex characteristic where it's not stiffer in any one point, where the whole flex is continuous.
Yeah, the entire board has a bit of crown going this way. Crown is the arc. Right?
Yeah, a camber, as we would call it, into nose and tail kicks. So
now, I'm an idiot. I thought it was just a flat board.
But isn't that wonderful that it's got a... And tell us, why is it not a flat board? Why?
Well, hence, it's the primary connotation of the term loaded is because the board is preloaded with energy. It's built up with all this...
Both of us went, at the same moment.
I love it. It's like, it's like when you see a semi, an 18-wheeler,
exactly.
empty truck, it's got a bow to it so that it doesn't sag.
Exactly the same thing.
And does that help you ride it? The fact that you're saying you're pressing down into it?
It does, because you have this dynamic force where as you're standing on it, you're pre-weighing the board, and then you have all this energy to... this lively energy to use to in and out of your turns.
Yeah, when you're talking about the sort of feedback to your feet, I'm realizing something. Skateboarders must have really sensitive feet.
Yeah,
I mean, it never occurred to me that your feet would be like a tool that you use like your hands in a way. You must have over 20 years. You must have very knowing feet. They must know a lot.
So imagine in other transportation if your feet had played such a role. I mean, I guess your feet do because you walk. Yeah. But your feet in other transportation are taken out of the process, other than you press a pedal.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just shifting gears and stuff. But you're really using. It's fascinating. It's a skew, but I love the idea that your feet are really giving you a lot of feedback on what you're doing, and you're maximizing the information.
Yeah.
Right?
Developing your proprioception.
Did they ever ride barefoot or anything just to feel more of it? That seems really... And then you'd fall in it with your
seems a little dangerous.
Yeah.
And that is historically, skateboarding in the 60s and 70s, coming from the surf background, people would ride them barefoot, and that was kind of...
Yeah, because they do ride surfboards barefoot, obviously.
Right. Yeah. But at these speeds, it's not really the most
you step off, you ruin your foot. Yeah.
I love that you've sort of tapped into this idea of that, as humans, we have all these other senses that we don't really take for granted. Like I know, like I used to have a design director in the automotive world that when he wanted to really feel and see a surface on a vehicle, he would pull down his pants and put his butt on the car.
What?
Yes, and he would slide his butt on the car because he would say your butt is the most sensitive part of your body.
He would slide his butt across the car.
And that was like the biggest compliment is if he would slide his naked butt on your design, you had a beautiful surface. So my point with this crazy story is that we have all of these other
one of
surfaces.
The things that we do. I used to think it was disgusting and gross, and to call out Pablo in my office, he's always, whenever we get urethane in a new urethane compound, he always bites it.
Oh,
because your sense of taste of it, not the taste, but the sense of your jaws and the way you sense the urethane. And he's right. He's totally right. And it took me a while.
It's like a cheese. It's like a good cheese.
You can sense the rebound. You can sense the feel. You can sense the nature of the compound.
Can I give you another silly example? Because I come out of the radio, TV, and film background.
Yeah.
And one of the quotes I suddenly flashed on is the great Harry Cohn, who built Columbia Pictures, who was a real rough, tough guy, used to judge a film by his butt. If he found himself moving around in his butt, it was too long.
He was bored.
It was too long.
So see, there's all okay. So I love this direction that we've gone because your entire board is the sensory, the haptic feedback and sensory feedback is all through these senses that are not your eyes. Mm-hmm. And that's fascinating because if you're riding in traffic, all of this stuff is happening. And I think you've probably just over the years intuited this, right? Because you've been riding skateboards for so long. Were you consciously thinking of these things as you designed this board? Or
of how the contours work?
Or how the feedback was going to get into your feet?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's inherently what we do. It's very much about that kind of visceral experience of space is what our forte is, what we're really particularly passionate
Say that again.
about.
What's a visceral experience of space? You guys throw these things out and everybody's nodding in the room like, what the hell does that mean?
We have my dog here today. He got it.
He got it. He had a visceral experience. That's all he lives is a visceral.
I think, from board sports, from skiing, from snowboarding, from surfing, as that ability to like lean out into space and have those G-forces carry you, that experience is kind of what, I don't know, and I think what we would call the Stoke. That
is the Stoke, isn't it? That's what you feel when I've never ridden a surfboard and I've rarely ridden a skateboard, but there is something that stokes people about it.
Is that what that means? It's like urban surfing kind of.
You're pushing yourself. You're pushing the physics in ways that you can't really achieve any other way. That just kind of don't feel, there's like this cognitive dissonance in what you're doing, and I think there's something really
like when they take it up and go on a railing, a hand railing or some crazy thing, and they kick this thing up into space. Yeah,
I think that's a great segue to talking about the future of transportation, since we do talk a lot about different ways people are going to be getting around in the future versus the past, or areas of the past that are going to be revisited. Do you see this as let's say for a man who runs a business, wanting and hoping it becomes more and more successful, which clearly it is because this is a very sophisticated piece of machinery. Where do you see this going? Like, what do you think's next for these?
It's a great question. I think we're in the Wild West right now in terms of micromobility. I'm a big fan of Horace Didu.
When he says micromobility, I want to make sure my gay listeners understand he's saying not my groomability, because that's what I understand, and micromobility is like a very different topic, which we'll say for another show.
And micromobility,
what is micromobility?
how do you define that term? Is it just moving in a micro world, a micro space?
It's more about the individual movement through space.
Okay.
Individual transportation primarily, although I don't think it necessarily has to be limited to purely transportation. It doesn't have to be purely functional, which is where I am particularly excited about it. I'm interested to see I'm really excited to see where it goes.
Now, wasn't that what Segway promised? That was the promise of personal micromobility. You become mobile. And it didn't seem to fly other than for security guards at a mall. I mean,
right.
That's a great topic, because I'm curious about because somebody who has done something that's sexy and cool, why do you think Segway didn't take off?
Well, I've heard a number of reasons, like political and structural reasons. I definitely think the sexy and cool aspect was the mall cop aspect.
It just kind of felt kind of dorky on, right? Yeah, that was kind of.
But
true.
then Segway, the story that I've heard is that Xiaomi. There was a company, Xiaomi in China, that was pretty much knocking off Segway left and right and taking all their patents. And Segway kept suing Xiaomi. Yeah. And finally, Xiaomi came and bought, or it was actually called Ninebot. Xiaomi bought Ninebot and gave them the money to buy Segway.
Oh, wow.
So Segway is now a Chinese company that manufactures all of the scooters that Bird and Lime and all those guys are using.
Interesting.
Those are all Segway. So Segway, in the end, roundabout, became successful and became a functional.
And will you ever take the genius of the Segway was the gyroscope, the self-balancing aspect of it. Cool. Would you ever incorporate something that into a skateboard, so I, a dorky guy, old grandpa, could ride one of these things without falling on my face?
I think it's really interesting. I'm not sure how to do that. I think I've always loved gyroscopes. I think that's such a cool feature, but I don't know offhand where that would go.
Well, that's what Brian's going to come up with right now.
Where I immediately go, so anytime I think of future and skateboards, I think people in my generation would all think of Back to the Future too, right? The hoverboards, right? And because when you think of the Biff's Bulldog or Marty McFly's, the Pit Bull, that's what it was called, and the little pink one, like there was an element of design that was those characters were prideful of those skateboards. Not rather so much that they flew or didn't fly. I get the the limitations of that, but there is a pridefulness in this because it's so beautiful. So I have a question for you. Whereas currently there is a lot of talk and controversy around these sort of this litter economy of scooters that people leave behind and they ride them and they let them go. Do you see your company becoming offering an object that people own? Is this an ownership object, or is it eventually going to be like
You just rent it for an hour and leave it behind.
It's a great question. I mean, right now it is an ownership model, and I think just given the nature, the complexity of having a handheld device that's not attached to it, right now I think probably makes more sense to continue to keep it as an ownership model. But that said, like as you look at what's happening in the scooter space, my assumption, looking at the Bird moped, I don't know if you've seen that they're coming out with next year.
I haven't. What is that? Just quickly, I've seen the Lime scooters. They have them around here in their base of our building here.
These, I don't know what they're going to be exactly. I've seen some design sketches that they put out, but they look like they're going to. I assume they're going to be 20, 25 mile an hour vehicles that are effectively small motorcycles,
tiny little motorcycles,
and that'll be
2 wheels, 3 wheels,
2 wheels.
There's a company, Wheels, is doing the little.
So Wheels is doing, I think Wheels, from what I see around LA, Wheels seems to have surpassed all the scooter companies because it's more accessible. And then these are more like mopeds. They're more like sit on top. More. They seem like they're more stable than the Wheels.
Yeah, there's something about the standing with the little bar it's why Marty McFly took it off, right? Because that thing makes you feel awkward, and as soon as you get rid of that weird thing, whether you sit down or stand and then have the balance, right, which is yours. So I'm curious, where do you think this will? Like, what's your vision for the future of your company? Like, where do you feel it goes?
One in every home.
What I really love about this project, the reason we teamed up with the team at Unlimited, aside from them just being a great group of engineers and great people, is that I really see it as a, no pun intended, as a vehicle for us to build all kinds of other vehicles on.
This is a platform.
It's a platform. The electric aspect of it, the fact that it's modular, the fact that it's easily scalable, allows us to design and build all types of other vehicles.
Could you see a version? Because I think a lot of people would be fascinated not just by the design of this, but there's a fun aspect to the motor, the control. But I think a lot of people might be like, the balance. I'd be scared of that. Can you imagine a version where you could sit down on this?
Absolutely.
Well, that's why I was getting to the gyroscope too, or something that makes it more balanceable.
It's a platform. Have you seen those motorcycle concepts with one wheel?
Yeah,
with the gyroscopes that allows this.
There's well, we're getting close to the end, so I want to save some time because that's also another thing. But I really, part of the show is really about the object you make, but to tell your story, because I think that it's your personal story is interesting. Could you tell me we have about 5 minutes left.
Or do you want to do this in 2?
We can do it in 2. That's fine too. But I think that
Bryan specializes in these 2-part shows because we get so geeked on the first 15 minutes and then we run out of time to tell the stories. I have we could do this as a 2 and wrap this up. And we've talked about the board and then come back and talk about the personal journey he's on.
Because I want people to know your story. You have just a little bit. We were talking in the lobby. I was like, you have a fascinating background and stuff. So, this is okay. So
So let's wrap this one up and tell people how they can get it, where they can find it, when it's out, all that stuff.
Voila.
Well, we launched it we've been doing Loaded and Orangutan for 20 years, but the Unlimited system is available online at unlimitedxloaded.com.
Slow down, say that again.
Unlimitedxloaded.com, as well as in specialty skate and snow shops around the world.
And if people want to connect with you personally, are you on Instagram? Do you have social media? Is there?
Loaded has a ton of social media.
You're the man behind them. I'm getting that. Yeah, okay, that's fine.
But you don't look loaded right now. You look like you're very sane and sober and
yes.
Well, it's
different kind of loaded.
Yeah. He's becoming loaded if you buy a skateboard.
Yeah, right. That's another kind of loaded, a third type of loaded. Yeah, loaded with cash.
I want people to really stick around because this guy has a wonderful story. So if you're watching this, we're listening to this, stay tuned. We're going to get into his personal background and stuff, and it's a great story. And Lou, the design dog, is going to
ride it.
Yes.
He's going to ride it.
He's going to make his debut riding it, so you don't want to miss that.
All right.